Stack Hunters in the house. Dan Williamson, Bradley Stalder, back stack hunting. And Bradley's early 2025 fantasy football rankings are in the spreadsheets, Dan. They are, I got freaky in the sheets, wild in the sheets. I'm no Michael Leone, but we got it done here, Dan. And so today we're going to go through some of the rankings, some of the spicy ones. Dan, you might have gotten spicy with some of the pigs last week, which is why we are, a week later than normal, but we'll continue to give you the good best ball content this offseason as we ramp up closer to the NFL draft. Dan, tell us about the pigs.
It was a fun week. We did our best to thin the herd of feral hogs that was down on the ranch where we were hunting at. So it was a lot of fun. Stalking them down, and it's all done at night too. So you're using night vision and everything. So it's a super fun event. We came home with plenty of wild pork in the coolers as well. So we're gonna be enjoying some good food as well.
Enjoying good food, enjoying good company. Dan, do you know if there are any wild hogs in Tampa?
I don't believe that there are. However, my knowledge of wild hogs in Florida is admittedly sparse. So I can tell you they're basically not in Minnesota yet, other than the very northwest corner where they've crept over from Ontario. No idea how the government currently feels about illegal hog crossings across the border there, but my suspicion is they frown on it.
Frown upon it. But Dan, you also frown upon some of these rankings already. I can just feel it in your bones that there are some that have been eating at you for the last 2 weeks since I shared these initial rankings. Let's get into it.
I mean, Bradley, I don't want to say these are spicy, but I had to, basically chug a full bottle of my Atlanta before starting this podcast. But I gotta say, I'm not furious about any of this. So
there we go. We're here for the good pun. We are sticking
yes, we
to
are.
Dad brand.
So let's just start right at the top. I mean, you've got we'll go to quarterback first. We'll kind of go through all the positions.
Sure.
You've got Jayden Daniels at the top. I mean, I think if all goes according to plan, that's definitely it's definitely defensible. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, you might say those guys are safer for sure. I mean, we saw what happened just as recently as CJ Stroud last year when he was aggressively pushed up. But I happen to be with you on Jayden Daniels. I think he's a special player. What I found a little more interesting was Joe Burrow ahead of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. You are very bullish on the Bengals from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, there lots of passing. I think JJ McCarthy is second in terms of passing volume. Joe Burrow I expect to be number one in terms of passing volume. Projected the most attempts.
And we have to stick a pin in that JJ McCarthy comment too.
Uh-oh.
So, but please continue.
Well, we'll get there. I'm looking forward to your JJ McCarthy take, given your patronage of the Minnesota Vikings. But Burrow, you've got Chase, you've got Higgins locked up. This defense is going to continue to be worse. And we saw what Burrow was able to do, especially in the second half of the season. They just got into these massive shootouts, and that's what I anticipate will continue. This is all assuming health. Like, I project for 15 games for all of the players, so at least it is like, a baseline. If they're a starter, I expect that they play 15 games unless they are an Anthony Richardson / Daniel Jones. That's on a per game basis. But Jayden Daniels, I think the difference, you mentioned the concerns that we had about pushing up CJ Stroud last year versus a Jayden Daniels. I'm not as concerned about Daniels imploding for two reasons. One is Stroud is not known to be a rushing quarterback. Jayden Daniels, I project to have about 700 rushing yards and between 3 and 4 rushing touchdowns. So I like that rushing edge that he gives. Whereas CJ Stroud, like I project him for 200 something rushing yards and 1 to 2 touchdowns. So the rushing is very safe for Jayden Daniels. And then the other part is the offensive line for CJ Stroud is just so terrible. Like the Houston Texans literally got worse because they traded Laramie Tunsil to Washington, right? The what goes up must come down, right? That's a Billy Muzio saying. So Jayden Daniels, more weapons, better offensive line. The cards are in favor of Jayden Daniels being. I'm happy with him at 1.
All right. Fair enough. I mean, personally, I'm not going to put a guy that high until I've seen it for 2 seasons. But again, I think it's safe. You don't obviously have to take Jayden Daniels first among the quarterbacks. You certainly can. But I think pretty much anybody, at any position in the draft, whether you have pick 1, pick 12, or anywhere in between, you're going to have your shot at Jayden Daniels. And so you can kind of just judge from ADP whether you need to push him up or whether you can just kind of let him fall to you. What I found a little bit more interesting, perhaps, is that you have, well, first of all, let's go back to your comment on J.J. McCarthy. You have the Vikings for the second most passing yards behind the Bengals.
Passing attempts, yeah.
Passing attempts.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're just a high pass volume offense, Dan. We saw that with Sam Darnold. We saw that with Kirk Cousins. And I know J.J. McCarthy historically had not been a high pass volume guy at U of M. But if the Vikings say you're our guy, then he fits into that mold.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where they are going with him. I'm just not sure that they get there this year. To me, what makes McCarthy intriguing is his rushing upside, which nobody's really talking about very much, but he's actually a very good athlete. I think he will use his legs quite a bit. My concerns with the Vikings are they've had a pretty good offseason so far. They look to probably have a better defense and hopefully a better running game as well. Plus, they're going to be breaking in the aforesaid J.J. McCarthy, rookie quarterback. So I'm not sure that I'm with you on the passing attempts being quite that high. That said, I mean, where J.J. McCarthy is going in actual best ball drafts is, quite simply a joke. The only thing that's keeping him down there is the fact that he hasn't been named the starter. I think once he's named the starter, his ADP is definitely going to jump. Once we see him in some preseason action, his ADP will jump there too. And I don't know which order those two things are going to happen in. We might see the preseason action and then he's named starter. He might get named starter and then we see the preseason action. I don't know. But I think both of those things are going to cause his ADP to jump. What I'm really curious about, though, is with what you're saying about McCarthy, and you have Caleb Williams one spot above him.
Yes, I love Caleb Williams as well. Like, this is the Ben Johnson corollary. We saw what Jared Goff was able to do with improved coaching, with a scheme that fit his skill set, and Caleb Williams is just from a talent perspective, such an increase in talent over a Jared Goff. And then you talk about the weapons that Chicago has just right now. DJ Moore, is clearly an alpha. Roma Dunze could ascend. My projections aren't as high as the ADP indicates. Like my ranking, I'm lower on Roma Dunze versus consensus. But Caleb Williams, sneaky, he's 19% rush share, sneaky rushing ability, just under 500 rushing yards projected for him, between 2 and 3 rushing touchdowns. So I think you're going to see, like, I have his pass volume down because I think they're going to be, the Bears are going to get into fewer games where they just have to throw to save their lives. There's going to be increased efficiency for Caleb Williams, and his rushing is going to be there. So I like Caleb Williams, as a top play. I think my two most drafted quarterbacks right now, Dan, are Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, and given their ADPs, I can definitely see why that would be the case. That makes a lot of sense. I find it interesting also that you have Jalen Hurts down below both McCarthy and Williams, just because of the tush push. I think he's obviously limited as a passer, but man, what he does on the ground and around the goal line, it makes him hard to push him too far down. However, I think he definitely belongs below Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, all of them. I love where you have Fields though, right behind Jalen Hurts. I think that's very sharp because really Justin Fields and Jalen Hurts are sort of the same guy. It's just that one of them has had a lot more NFL success than the other one. But as far as like how they play the position, what their talents are, there are a lot more similarities than differences.
Yeah, the Fields one I'm also very happy with, given the projected rush share. I have 18% rush share for Fields, 400 rushing yards, between 2 and 3 touchdowns. But what really is exciting for Fields is he has the unique ability to access the best of the best weeks. Like his standard deviation of outputs is so much higher than the players around him. Last season, his standard deviation was 11.25. To give a comparison, Jalen Hurts was at 8. Joe Burrow was at 8.16. Jayden Daniels was at 9.54. The only player with a higher standard deviation was Josh Allen with 12.34. Just the ability to get those elite fantasy performances is something that Justin Fields has shown not only last year, but in previous years as well, when he was the full-time starter. And the Jets have clearly put their chips in for at least year one that Justin Fields is going to be the guy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Justin Fields seems like he has a clear ramp to a full season as being a starter, injury concerns aside. You've got him as quarterback 9 here. Is that right? Yeah.
And Fields is 10.
Quarterback 10. Okay. And he's going as quarterback 19 in FFPC. McCarthy, who you have as quarterback 7, we've got him at quarterback 25 on the FFPC.
Oh.
So you don't have to take McCarthy until the 13th round. It's so glorious. I cannot count the number of teams I have J.J. McCarthy or Justin Fields as my quarterback 2 or 3. It's just so easy to to wait and then click those buttons. So. To me, one of the ways that I've been attacking the FFPC tourneys is to get that one quarterback in there at some point and then really wait for quarterback 2, quarterback 3, because I just don't feel like you really need to push it this year because there are enough good options down there. Anthony Richardson is another one. I mean, you can combine him with Daniel Jones very easily for a very it costs you a roster spot, but as far as draft capital, it's cheap, so it makes the additional roster spot a little bit more affordable in a way.
Dan, I do apologize. Justin Fields is number 9. The update that I had made had not included Jameis Winston being eliminated from the projections. Look, I was about to go hog wild for Jameis Winston for like the 4 days that he was the Giants starter, but there's rumblings even out today, Dan, that the Giants are not out on taking a quarterback as well in this draft. Wouldn't surprise me at all, given that Russ is only signed for a 1-year deal. Jameis is on a 2-year deal, but it's a backup deal. The Giants are very much in play for a quarterback at 3.
Yeah, I think that they definitely are. However, I do need to double check and make sure this wasn't just an accidental omission or whether this is abject heresy here. I'm looking through your top 20 quarterbacks, and I do not see one Patrick Mahomes listed anywhere in the top 20.
This is true, Dan. This is not a forgotten.
Bradley.
This is not a mistake, Dan. Give me 15 games of Kenny Pickett over 15 games of Patrick Mahomes in fantasy football in 2025.
Now I'm furious.
Look, I've been right 2 years in a row on Patrick Mahomes. I've been significantly lower than consensus, and I will continue to be very low. I know that your objection, Dan, I've heard this objection before, and it's the Rashee Rice objection that he will be back. I am not as confident, Dan.
I understand you're not as confident in that, but as he goes throughout the season, I mean, it's going to be as much what he does during the playoffs as any other time. So, I mean, that's a part of it. You also have Xavier Worthy. You've got Hollywood Henderson. Travis Kelce is re-upped, which I know he's, just basically a catch and fall down guy if he even bothers to catch it anymore. But at the same time, he was still like tight end 5 last year. I cannot have Penix, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Kenny Pickett. I mean, come on, Bradley. Kenny Pickett.
Give me Kenny Pickett.
No.
As long as Matt Nagy is the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes will continue to be extremely low and not on my draft board.
No. I'm sorry. This heresy cannot stand. You have to have Mahomes in your top 12, 13, pretty much no matter what. I'm sorry. All
right, Dan, we'll put it on the board. There's a beer bet. We're making a beer bet. Here we go. Kenny Pickett, provide 15 games, outscores Patrick Mahomes over 15 games.
Okay, well, that's not a very good beer bet, though, because Kenny Pickett is never playing 15 games. So we need to go with one of these.
Did you hear that the Browns are probably going to take Abdul Carter with the second pick?
I mean, that could happen. I don't know.
Super Bowl champion Kenny Pickett.
We'll see. I still think I still think Shedeur Sanders is going there, but we'll see. I don't know. How about this? How about if we go with Geno Smith, Michael Penix? Would you take either of them as bets? I would even go, because the problem with Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson is getting to the 15 games to make it a legal bet. I'm trying to find somebody where we have an actual, like a good chance of this bet actually.
Bryce Young.
Out.
Bryce Young.
All right, I'll take Bryce Young.
All right.
That'll work. Okay, so
right. I say Bryce Young outscores Patrick Mahomes 15 games minimum. There we go.
Okay. And you're writing this down.
I can write this down. Yes, the viewers, the people at home will also hold us accountable to the Bryce Young versus Patrick Mahomes fantasy football output. Dan, we've been talking about the FFPC. They're good partners with us. Let's hear a word from the FFPC.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
There you go. The world's easiest site to level up on, I'm telling you. You can start with the $35 games, and you can find yourself playing $350 games pretty quickly, and then right on up. So, love the FFPC. Fantastic place to play.
You love to see it. The Hardway draft we hosted on FFPC, and that's looking pretty good for me so far, Dan. I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out.
You like your draft? Yeah, you got a good draft going there. I feel good about mine. It's a little unconventional, but we'll see if we get there in the end. So
I sent it to Billy. I asked draft board no names, which team does he think is the best, and he picked mine out, Dan. So I'm just gonna brag on the off-season W's.
Yeah, but Billy can't even play fantasy football anymore. So
what does he know, anyways? Former number one ranker.
That's right.
Podcast buddy. But let's move on to running backs, Dan.
Indeed. Yes, let's. So what do you think is your spiciest pick here? I'm curious. I know what I think is your spiciest pick, but I want to hear what you think is your spiciest pick.
Yeah, I think the most obvious outlier is DeAndre Swift.
Bingo.
I think that's the one that he is a placeholder right now. Last year, there were only a few running backs who had at least a 60% rush share. That was Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Kyron Williams, DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon, and Jonathan Taylor. That's it. So he's the obvious outlier, but if you get an upgraded offense, Ben Johnson offense, Caleb Williams, we're here. This is the Bears. They've upgraded their offensive line significantly. I'm in on DeAndre Swift up until we get more news that there's a new running back in Chicago. But he's not priced that way, Dan. He's outside the top 100 of players. So he's the cheapest. And when you talk about year-to-year volume for a player who has second-round draft capital pedigree and who we've seen have massive spike weeks in the past and who does have strong athleticism, I think the only knock against DeAndre Swift is that he lacks the dog mentality. And so it's possible that you see Ben Johnson or the rest of the Chicago Bears move away from him throughout the season, but at least to start the season, I still think DeAndre Swift is the guy you want to have in the Bears backfield.
Yeah, I think that's probably true, but as far as a ranking, I think that's why he has to be pushed much, much lower. We can talk about his NFL draft capital, but I think at this stage of his career, it's really just doesn't mean anything anymore. He's bounced around, now on his third team. The two teams that he was on prior were totally fine letting him go. Yet on the other hand, he's never finished below RB24. So he's going as RB32 right now in the FFPC streets, which is 89th overall. So that's that's ninth round basically. So I think that's a fair place for Swift to be residing right now, especially with all the concerns about who they might draft. I mean, they could take a running back in the first, they could take a running back in the second. So while I understand you're saying, hey, this is where I think the lead Chicago running back belongs. My question is there going to be a lead Chicago running back this year? And B, will it be Swift?
So let's play this out a little bit. The Chicago Bears know what they have in DeAndre Swift, and that is a player who is he's caught the ball out of the backfield. That's part of his pedigree. Is he's known for handling pass catching work. I projected him for 40 receptions this year. He kind of fits the Jahmyr Gibbs role in the Ben Johnson offense. So if I'm the Bears and I'm drafting a running back, I'm probably looking at a Quinshon Judkins type. Between the tackles guy who's got some burst, to fill the David Montgomery. Now, whether you comp Judkins exactly to Montgomery doesn't matter. I agree with you that I think there are going to be splitting the touches, splitting the carries, but we also saw Gibbs and Montgomery be top 15 backs pretty much every week. Like both of them can be there. So for Swift to be outside the top 30 of running backs, I still think that that's too low, and the fear is the worst case scenario is already built in for Swift.
Right. And, in looking at the running back rankings, I'm just going to keep counting up and you tell me where I should stop. DeAndre Swift or Travis Etienne?
Give me Swift.
Okay. Jaylen Warren.
Give me Swift.
Pollard.
Give me Pollard.
Caleb Johnson.
Give me Swift.
Tyrone Tracy.
Give me Swift.
Aaron Jones.
Give me Jones.
Okay. So you've got him probably somewhere in the running back 25, 26 range. Realistically, I think if I keep going on further up, we're going to hit Najee Harris, David Montgomery, James Conner. You've got him listed over some of these guys, but
yeah,
again, I think we're looking at a placeholder here, but not to spend too much time on Swift. I think we've pretty well fleshed that one out. I'm curious your thoughts on Tyrone Tracy. You've got him fairly far down. You've got him below Aaron Jones. Personally, I would put him above Aaron Jones. I would also put Chase Brown probably above Aaron Jones. Are you concerned about a rookie running back coming in, or are you just concerned about him maintaining his role in the offense as it is?
I think it's both. I think it's recognizing that Tyrone Tracy had a nice rookie year. Like, we'll give him the props that he deserves. But my concern is that it's a very fragile situation. It could be Chase Brown of last year, where he was projected to be the guy, and then he explodes. He has like a very nice season. The Giants' offense should be better with Russ. Like, it's just going to be better. Like, it might not be great, but at least it'll be better. But that doesn't.
Wait, how did you pronounce Winston again? Say that again. Russ. It's a weird pronunciation.
Look, if the fantasy gods had their way, Jameis Winston would be the guy. We all want more Jameis in our lives. The post-game, pre-game interviews, the making of snow angels, in the middle of the field are eating always W's. Eating the W's. But when it comes to Tyrone Tracy, it's a fragile situation. And I projected him for 212 rushing attempts, 933 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns. Like, it's a cluster of between 100. So I have 4 guys projected within 1.8 points. And that's Caleb Johnson, James Conner, Tony Pollard, and Tyrone Tracy, all within like a point. So literally just toggling a percentage of the rush share or the target share moves one up or down. I don't think that there's a tier like the Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry are clearly tiers above that group. So,
right.
But in that group of 4, I don't see much of a difference, or I don't project much of a difference in terms of what they bring to the table. But I do like that Tony Pollard projects as the number 1 in the backfield. And I don't anticipate the Titans addressing the running back position with Tazi Spears. Where I'm at
with the Giants, though, too. I mean, I think the Giants have 99 problems, and a running back ain't one. So, given the fact that Tracy looked so good, given the fact that Dable really likes his guy Motor, as a Devin Singletary as a second back, I'm just not sure that they spend the draft capital there, or if they do, it's going to be 5th, 6th, 7th rounder, somebody like that who's more sort of on the understudy program rather than the threat for a job. So Tyrone Tracy is one that I've actually been quite bullish on. I think as far as 0 running back drafters, he's an ideal click, because you're looking at running back 25 right now on FFPC. He's going in basically the middle of the 6th round, pick 68 is his ADP. So,
he's my RB24. So like it's right in line with
you're right
the
there.
ADP.
Then you're picking that up as well. I think as well, a couple others I kind of have highlighted. Chase Brown. I don't think there's a great deal of danger. I actually like the Samaje Perine signing. To me, that was kind of the, hey, we don't want to spend draft capital on a running back. Let's put in Perine. We'll grab somebody late in the draft, and we feel pretty set. If I'm Cincinnati, that's the way I'm looking at it. Do you think that's crazy?
I agree with you that Chase Brown is still going to handle the majority of the work, but last year he was handling 100% of the carries, 93% of the carries, 95% of the carries in a game, and I don't think that's sustainable. I think he's still the lead back, but if he goes down to 65, 70%, the issue was that he was still putting up like low-end RB1, high-end RB2 weeks with the insane volume. So if we drop that down from 95% of rushes to 70, 75% of rushes, that's taking a significant chunk out of Chase Brown. They did want to get a little bit more from, Zach Moss, Khalil Herbert. Like they wanted a little bit more, but it was clear that they were just going to ride the hot hand, and Chase Brown was the guy there. So at having him RB15, it's a soft fade of Chase Brown. It's not, plummeting him into the depths of the sea, but recognizing that he can get the volume, he's not super efficient. He will get some passing work, and he's on an offense that will pass a lot.
Right. But he's also on an offense where he could fall over the goal line a lot. He to me, he's right next to James Cook in the FFPC ADP, running back 13, running back 14. Basically both of them going around pick 3.8. And the difference in them, to me, was the fact that Cook fell into the end zone a lot. Brown did not. And that could easily reverse itself this year. And if Brown falls into the end zone a lot more, that could make up for a lot. I mean, I know that's an if situation, but on a high-powered offense, I think you have to somewhat account for the fact that the running back on that offense could get a lot of touchdowns, whoever the lead back happens to be. So he's a guy that I'm going to have a hard time fading for sure. You called it a soft fade. I think that's fair. Before we leave the running backs, I'm just curious your thoughts on Chuba Hubbard now that he has a backfield meet in Rico Dowdle. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it was interesting because Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle both had over 50% rush shares last year. So to put them on the same team, I'm going to defer to the incumbent, Chuba Hubbard. Like they brought in Rico Dowdle. Dowdle seemed to have some juice near the end, but wasn't outstanding, And so they wanted to find a guy who they wouldn't have to change the offense if Chuba went down. And we know This is also the move that you would make knowing that Jonathan Brooks is expected to be out for all of 2025. Like you want a solid number 2 who is essentially a 1B to your Chuba Hubbard. So, wow, my light. I don't know what's going on with my light. Come on. Nevertheless, okay. I don't know. It's a sign from God. Bradley, shut up about Chuba Hubbard. But you like the passing game work that Chuba had last year. You like that this is now like Rashad White plus in the Dave Canales offense. Like that's what you want, is this Carolina Panthers offense to take the next steps. And Chuba Hubbard, I think, is still the guy in the Panthers backfield. Yeah, I'm buying any dip from ADP.
I agree. I think Chuba's a great pick. One thing I've learned to do over the last few years is I've continued to refine my drafting and figuring out how to beat this game, which is tough to do, no doubt. But one of the things is when I find a player that the coaches are really in on, and a good example would be James Conner. The Arizona coaching staff just absolutely loves James Conner, looks at him as a super big team leader. And knowing that has allowed me to keep drafting dips on James Conner, and that's been very profitable for me. I kind of see the same thing with Chuba Hubbard. I mean, everything that Canales has said about Chuba Hubbard, I mean, and then, he gets rewarded with the contract extension. It all says that, hey, this is one of the guys they considered to be a team leader. And when you have guys like that who have performed as well as Hubbard has performed, I'm less concerned about some other running back who was signed as a street free agent, all of a sudden coming in and taking a huge chunk of his work. I think probably, having Dowdle there is going to actually help out Hubbard a little bit just by kind of keeping the wear down on him. So, he'll be fresh throughout the season. Sometimes a little bit less can be a little bit more when it comes to carries versus efficiency.
Especially because Carolina, this is year 2. They want to compete. They're done being the bottom of the barrel. They're done in the rebuilding stage. They are now in the growing stage. It's clear that Bryce Young was not a bust, that they just needed to do a hard reset for him. And they found some guys. He connected with Adam Thielen. He connected with Jalen Coker, right? There's been some positive movement. Xavier Legette had some flashes. Jatavion Sanders maybe is an answer at tight end. We'll see. But Carolina has some pieces now, and Chuba Hubbard's part of it.
Yes, definitely. Shall we move on to wide receivers, Bradley?
We shall.
All right. Because this is one I've been dying to get at, and I secretly love it. I don't know if I can buy into it, but man, I love the concept here. You have Jerry Jeudy one spot above Amon-Ra St. Brown. Defend yourself.
Sure. The Browns know how to use Jerry Jeudy. Denver did not. Coming out of the draft, Jerry Jeudy was pigeonholed as a slot finesse route runner type of wide receiver. And that's how he was treated pretty much in his entire time in Denver. That would changed in Cleveland. When we look at what Jerry Jeudy was able to do in the 2024 season, a 25% target share, right? That is something that gets you into the alpha conversation. But it's not just a target share, because not anyone can get the target share, but it's one indicator. The other that's very interesting for me is his rate of playing on the outside, because that shifted in 2020. It shifted. I'm trying to, there we go. Pull up the Jerry Jeudy stats here. Jeudy, 142 targets, 90 receptions, 1,200 receiving yards. He only had 4 touchdowns, but half of the season, Dan, was spent with arguably the worst quarterback passing performance we've ever seen historically in Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was ultra terrible. And then the second half of the season, week 9 on, 11 targets, 10 targets, 6 targets, 13 targets, 6 targets, 14 targets, 3 targets, 18 targets, 13 targets. And some of those games were with Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So when we talk about the slot rates, right, over the last 4 years, in 2021, Jerry Jeudy was at a 76% slot rate, 54%, 59%, and then in Cleveland, 35%. He was primarily playing outside. And so if he can create separation, he's going to have the big plays. He came in as a speed guy, like a sneaky speed guy. And now who else is catching balls? Are you going to say that Cedric Tillman is going to be the guy? Look, I like the story of Cedric Tillman. I don't think that he's going to overtake Jerry Jeudy. I like David Njoku, but Njoku has a particular role, and that's red zone, end zone, and got to get it plays. Like, he's also a trusted target, but he's not a down the field guy. Jerry Judy's a big down the field guy. He's 6'1", 193. He's got the speed. He can do it. And so when we talk about the volume of who are the Browns going to throw to, like a 25% target share is once again in the cards for Jerry Jeudy. And I project 6 receiving touchdowns. He only had 4 last year. So I like Jerry Jeudy there. And the difference between Jeudy and Amon-Ra is the depth of target, right? Amon-Ra is oftentimes limited by the fact that he's operating out of the slot. It's closer to the line of scrimmage. And so the bigger plays that Jerry Jeudy was able to make, even without Jameis Winston at helm, makes him a player that I keep clicking because he is, outside the top 20 of wide receivers, and he could easily end up in the top 12.
Would you like to know who my most owned wide receiver is in the FFPC tournaments so far this year?
Tell me, Dan.
It is Jerry Jeudy.
Oh, let's go.
The price is just fantastic. Now, it's hard to get in front of having him in front of Amon-Ra St. Brown. However, you are definitely right about the depth of target. That's that's one issue. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 142 targets last year. Jerry Jeudy, 144. Not many people realize that Jeudy actually out-targeted Amon-Ra St. Brown last year. And that, I think, is significant. That's what makes Jerry Jeudy such a great buy. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, also, as the year went on, had more and more competition coming from J.M.O. Williams and Sam Laporta. Both of them started off a little bit, not as strong to start the year, and they came on. So I think Amon-Ra faces some headwinds that are a little bit sneaky, a little bit hard to see. But on the other hand, he plays on a very, very good offense. Jerry Jeudy's offense is not likely to score near as many as touchdowns. So I'm still putting Amon-Ra St. Brown above Jerry Jeudy, but I like where you got Jeudy here. He's wide receiver 13 in your rankings. He finished wide receiver 15 last year. With a couple, 3 more touchdowns, it's not hard to imagine him being a borderline top 12 receiver. So it's a fun ranking here. Let's talk a little T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, because you know what? I can buy Jamar Chase at number 2, but I cannot buy T. Higgins at number 4. I feel pretty strongly I am correct that we have never seen an offense sustain a number 2 and a number 4 or any really 2 top 5 wide receivers ever. So I'm curious how you see this working. Do you think that the Bengals offense is going to be just that good?
The offense is going to score lots of points, Dan.
Yes.
And the other part that's very interesting to me is that for the majority of the season, in games where T. Higgins and Jamar Chase played together, Higgins was getting the same amount of targets as Jamar Chase. It was for minus the last 2 games of the season. It was pretty much neck and neck the entire way. In fact, there was a part of the season where T. Higgins had out-targeted Jamar Chase. And so, look, sometimes that's variance. Sometimes it's just who was open, game plan, scheme, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to I want to be in on Cincinnati Bengals scoring lots of fantasy points. And T. Higgins is known for not only scoring downfield and the big plays, but also the touchdowns. He's known for his touchdown rate, and that's something we don't want to be ignoring.
Right. And in best ball, I can get behind pushing T. Higgins a little bit higher. because of the huge spike weeks that he's prone to. I do worry a little bit, once we move beyond the best ball streets, that, this is a guy who out of 12 weeks last year only had 4 wide receiver 1 weeks. That's a guy that I just have trouble putting up that high.
And I hear you. In best ball, I want the spike weeks that T. Higgins is going to give me. Mm-hmm. But starting him as the wide receiver 2 on my team in a redraft league, that's hard to do. That's much harder to do. The zeros have existed for the injuries for T. Higgins. I totally get that. These projections are based on 15 games played. Mm-hmm. So,
and I think that, to a certain extent, you have to look at, per game, rate stats as well as total stats, because you know what, we play this game on a weekly basis. It's right. Not a, compare, total stats at the end of the season. If we did, we'd be looking at T. Higgins and say, well, he was only wide receiver 17 last year, but he only played 12 games. So when you start looking at the per game rate stats, then the case becomes a little bit stronger. One would assume that now for best ball, your team is who they are, and injuries do kind of come into play for that, because anytime you're down, if T. Higgins can't play, that means that you're starting a probably much worse wide receiver. So availability, I think, definitely does enter into the picture. As far as seasonal, hey, you can put him on your bench and somebody else can go in. You might be able to pick up a 1-week pickup that, accounts for it a little bit better than what you can do on a best ball roster. But, I mean, to me, I can't put a wide receiver 2 above, I'm going to say he's down in the Mike Evans range for me. I think Neighbors, Jeudy, on your list, Neighbors, Jeudy, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, all clearly have to go ahead of Higgins. I'll put Higgins above Tyreek Hill, though, just because, if Hill's healthy, maybe he's, but I'm having a harder time believing that Hill is going to stay healthy. I think this might be the year for him, but that's just a hunch. So tell me, who else, Bradley, when you did your projections, who else really surprised you on your wide receiver list that you didn't expect to show up where they did?
I was happy that Addison was where he was at.
Okay.
He's like wide receiver 20, and his ADP is almost wide receiver 30 on most sites. He's just a spike week king. Like, when it comes to best ball, when he hits very hard. He wins deep. He gets the 50-yard touchdown. It may only be 5 or 6 targets in a game, but when he hits very, very big. A.J. Brown being one spot ahead of him, I think, speaks to the volume concerns in Philly, the passing volume. And we saw for a long stretch at the end of the 2024 season, A.J. Brown just getting nothing. No touchdowns, no yardage, even with a decent target share. Because even a decent target share in a very small pie is not going to get it done for us for fantasy. So unfortunately, they're in similar boats, even though AJ Brown such if it was multi tiers ahead in terms of talent, but it's what it's offering from an upside perspective. And look, I think Justin Jefferson existing on the same team as Jordan Addison helps Addison. This is the Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster corollary.
All right, fair enough.
Oh, just to spot check you on the top, how many top plays, fantasy wide receivers. I was able to find Tampa Bay had a top 15 and 16 wide receiver. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans back in 2020.
Yeah.
And they also had Gronk as the tight end. Gronk that year was not that good, but
yeah, not that good.
I think in 2021 he was better.
Yep, could be. But yeah, that's to me that's
it's
just
tough.
It's really tough because
Yep.
Even getting two guys in the top 24 isn't easy. Getting two guys in the top 12, I think, has happened a couple times, but it's in the past 25 years or so. Basically since the turn of the century.
Okay, so Godwin, Antonio Brown, and Mike Evans were all three top 11 in 2021.
All three top 11.
Yeah, and then
That must be
Gronk was
per game because Antonio
it's
Brown
per game.
wasn't. Oh yeah, per game. Okay.
And then Gronk was top 3 that year as
Right.
well in tight ends.
Okay.
So there does exist something there, Dan, but
Right, but the per game also, what we have to keep in mind is that when certain players are out for a stretch, that really skews the per game numbers, because you can have, like say, Godwin was really good when he was playing, and then Antonio Brown was really good when he was playing. But if they don't overlap that much in which games they played, then you have and I think that was the case that year. I don't think there was a lot of overlap between those two, unless I'm misremembering. So, you end up with really two guys that are really kind of one guy, you know what I mean? Rather than being two guys because they didn't play that much together.
well,
If that makes sense.
it makes sense to me, Dan.
Okay.
Hopefully
as long as
the
it makes
listeners
sense
and
to you.
viewers also
Yes.
follow along.
Yes.
And hopefully you will also be following along on the Fast Draft Origins tournament. So check it out on Fast Draft. It's open right now over the next month up until the NFL draft. Here's Matt Kelly about Fast Draft.
Rookie. It's all about rookie talk in fantasy football right now. So why not go use all that knowledge to do something other than a mock draft? Chris Jimino won $8,000 with just 2 teams last year, and each draft took 5 minutes. That's pretty good ROI. You can start doing rookie drafts for money today on Fast Draft. The Origins tournament is live. It is the place to go and monetize your knowledge of rookies and use your favorite Player Profiler host promo code for a $25 deposit match. Now let's go start drafting faster.
Actually, now it's $50. It's $50. Use promo code STACK for a 100% deposit match up to $50. Dan, I have been in the Origin streets. I traveled to Ohio last weekend and dropped 40 Origin drafts. So get in the streets. Get
Bradley,
in the streets.
there you go. And you had a turbo team in the draft I did tonight. I did one live just because I was like, I've been hearing Matt Kelly talk about how fast these drafts are, and I've done the turbos, where you don't even have to be there. You just
Right.
let the computer do the draft for you. You set your rankings and it just goes from there. So that is like the ultimate easy button. But I was like, what if I want to just sit in the draft and let it happen? Apparently that thing was done in less than 5 minutes. He's not kidding. I mean,
Nope.
60 players done in less than 5 minutes because, again, you have so many turbo drafters in there. There's usually only a couple, 3 people drafting live, but that also means if you are in there drafting live, you have the ability to react to what's going on around you more so than the turbo drafters. So,
Right.
You can have a little bit of an advantage there. So there's reasons to do both kinds. The turbo drafts to get the volume and, every once in a while hit a live draft in there just to kind of play around and see what happens.
I love it. My highest exposed player is Dylan Gabriel.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's a very common last round selection for me. Up there as well, my highest rostered running back Cam Scatabo. Highest rostered wide receiver is Tez Johnson, and tight end is Harold Fannin.
Okay. I like it. I got Arroyo as my highest rostered tight end. I haven't looked recently to see where my percentages are, but I do know I've had a lot of Arroyo, because I pushed him up higher in my default rankings. So
Love it.
yep.
Well, let's talk tight ends.
Yes, let's do it. Let's talk a little bit of tight ends. You have McBride over Bowers. I can kind of see it. You're going to make a lot of people angry with this Travis Kelce top 3 tight end, and then Patrick Mahomes not even in your top 20 quarterbacks. I mean,
Well,
look, explain yourself here, Bradley. Come on, let's go.
Literally, Travis Kelce. Last year, there were 4 tight ends who earned at least a 20% target share. Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Travis Kelce, and Hunter Henry. Those are the 4 to earn at least a 20% share. Travis Kelce, even though his efficiency has massively dropped off, he's still getting targets. And especially with Rashee Rice expected to miss some time, we don't know how much time. The injury plus the suspension is something that Dan and I have been talking about ad nauseum. But once we get some clarity, like if Rice plays 14 games, then I think Kelce needs to drop down significantly. But for right now, Kelce's still earning 20% target share. I'm not convinced Hollywood Brown is good still. I'm not convinced. He's just a guy right now.
The Chiefs seem to be convinced that he is, because they were very proactive in signing him, and they signed him to a raise based over what they were giving him last year, despite the fact that he barely played. So, to me, I'm reading between the lines here. That tells me that either they think that Rashee Rice is going to be out a significant chunk of time, or they think that Hollywood Brown is a better fit for this offense than what he was able to show in his limited action, or both.
Well, they missed Justin Watson. Watson played a lot of snaps at wide receiver. Even if you're not a big Justin Watson fan, he didn't do much for fantasy. He played a lot for Kansas City, and he left for Houston. So
right. But they signed Hollywood Brown before he left for Houston, so I think that's very telling. But anyway, getting back to Travis Kelce, one could also make the argument that even if we do have Rice, fully deployed, and we do have Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown fully deployed, all that does is open up the middle of the field for Kelce. So, you can grab Kelce basically right at the 6-7 turn in the tight end premium FFPC streets, which is just crazy. He's going as tight end 8, and that's not to me like a huge bargain or anything, but it's also a price where I definitely don't want to be shut out on Travis Kelce. No. I'm going to get some shares at that price for sure, because of the fact that he does have such great upside. I do have to take exception with you putting Kelce over Kittle. I think Kittle is primed for a big year this year. With Debo out of the way, I think that's gonna make things nice for Kittle. Ayuk still might be hitting the trade streets at some point. We don't know for sure, but Kittle is a guy that just every time people put him down, he shows that he belongs. And you're not
putting him down. He's my tight end 4.
Yes,
he's my tight end 4, Dad.
But he's behind Kelce. I mean, I don't know.
Look, I don't disagree with you on the Kittle could have significantly more upside argument. Ricky Pearsall, do you think Pearsall showed enough last year?
It's really hard to say. I mean, he did show out. He went bonkers in a couple games, and that was great to see. But we just had such a small sample size, that it's tough to put too much into that. I mean, to me, there's a lot of ambiguity as to, what is Juwan Jennings' role going to be in the offense? What's, right. Pearsall's role going to be? Is Ayuk going to be around? There are still a lot of moving parts. The one thing that I know is that Kittle is always a constant at tight end. So he's a guy I've been drafting very heavily this year, basically in all formats. And, you've got him in a good spot, tight end 4. I'm not going to give you too much crap for that. I do like the fact that you have Samuel Porta pushed down a little bit. I think that's fair, and that's the right thing to do.
It's a soft fade overall of the Lions.
Right.
I think that's something that, when you look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's a little bit lower. Laporta is just a little bit lower. David Montgomery is just a little bit lower. Jared Goff is low in the rankings relative to ADP. I think it's the move is to soft fade the Lions, given the shift at offensive coordinator. It's unproven. We've seen the floors for a Jared Goff, right? We've seen the floor for Sam Laporta, and it's not good. It's not good. And so the Lions, that's within the range of outcomes for this year. And that's why I'm a little bit lower on the Lions overall than, last year.
Yep. Definitely makes sense. Love the Jonnu Smith at tight end 5. He has become a big part of that Miami offense. I don't think that's going away. So, and to me, really, the takeaway is, a lot of people are, can be very ageist in fantasy football, especially at this time of year. When we're all excited about the rookies and drooling over the rookies and all that kind of stuff. But you know what? The tight ends, it's just, man, these old guys rule.
Yeah.
If you take a look at the top 7 tight ends last year in FFPC scoring, 5 out of the top 7 were age 29 or older at the start of last season. That is unbelievable. Well, actually, I'm lying. Mark Andrews was 1 day shy of 29 when the season started.
Oh darn.
So.
Zach Ertz was, he's a guy that we need to be continuing to click. I think he re-signs with Washington. He's a player that, he's not super high in the rankings, but he'll get you points.
Do you have concerns with Debo there?
No, I don't think so. I have Debo, built into these projections, and still comes out that, Zach Ertz is the tight end 13.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fair. Tight end 13 definitely makes some sense. I think, where did he come in last year? Taking a look real quick. I think he was about tight end 9 or 8. No, he was tight end 7. So he was one of those 7. So, and tight end 7, I think, is a little bit too much to ask for out Ertz again this year. But, he's going to be in that range of respectable producing tight ends. Like you asked me, Zach Ertz or Tucker Kraft, Zach Ertz or, I think Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, depending on how they land. I think that's, those are fair questions. Zach Ertz or Hunter Henry, I think that's a fair question. How far has Dallas Goedert fallen? And does Dallas Goedert, if he gets traded to some other team, does he actually move up in your rankings?
Yeah, I think so. The passing volume, Goddard will get a 15-17% target share, and when you increase the volume, that puts him closer to Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson, somewhere in that range.
Nice. All right, sounds good. Any other thoughts on tight ends that you wanted to hit that I haven't yet?
A sleeper is Chigakonkwo.
Mm-hmm.
With actual competent quarterback play in Tennessee, Okonkwo, there's been a lot of coach speak that's been positive for Chig. We see it takes a couple years for some of these developmental players to hit, and Chig was a darling a couple years ago after he had a nice rookie year and then fell flat the last couple seasons when the offense was bad. But with what we expect to be Cam Ward at the helm, assuming that there's not a trade, Tennessee is trending toward taking Cam Ward number 1 overall. I think that's tight ends are a safety blanket typically for these rookie quarterbacks. There's not really a ton of other receiver, think about the receiver room in Tennessee, right, Dan? Chigakonkwo, there's a pathway for him to get into the Cade Otton, Sam Laporta, ceiling. That's probably the ceiling for him. But if you're drafting him at tight end 25 and he gives you a top 12, top 15 season, then there's some useful weeks and you just made a nice little profit on Chig. So That's how I'm viewing Chigakonkwo.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And that's the thing. I mean, you want to be if you're taking some of these crusty old vets, it's nice to take pair them with a young guy that hasn't broken out yet, because of the fact that it does take a while for tight ends to break out. I mean, you just have to be patient. So a lot of times, tight ends will go through, when they're first come out as rookies. They're not necessarily aggressively drafted as rookies, though that has been changing over the last couple of years. But then, like year two, everybody expects the big jump. And then if it doesn't happen in year two, then year three, year four, they're ADP craters. And they become a nice value, because often it will take, 3, 4, maybe even 5 years for a tight end to really start hitting and clicking. And when they do, then you get nice value on them. So I always like to take guys, that I had pegged as, I think this is a strong prospect at tight end, and I will keep drafting them even, 2, 3 years after they have failed to fire, at least some, just because of the fact that eventually they often do fire.
And it's an easy double tap of Cam Ward, Chigakonkwo at the end of your drafts. Like it's just,
there you go.
It's so easy and cheap to get that stack. And, as you're working through, creating your teams, you can get one of a JJ McCarthy, a Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, and then get the late stacks with Okonkwo, Cam Ward. Right now, the tight end one for the New York Jets is Stone Smart, Dan.
Yeah.
Ty Warren and Colson Loveland might be
one
headed
of
to
them
New
is
York.
going there. It feels fairly certain. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Either that or they end up trading for Dallas Goedert or something like that. I mean, or Michael Mayer or something.
But look, free Michael Mayer, please.
Yes.
Go Irish.
So, there you go.
All right. On behalf of Dan, I'm Bradley. Until next time, good luck in the fantasy football streets, everybody.